By now, you should have a very good idea of the importance of talking to users. Well, let's talk about how we can do this properly. Here are a few principles that you have to follow. First, remember that your only goal is to invalidate your bad assumptions as quickly as possible to reduce the value risk of your idea. Remind yourself what you're trying to learn from the conversation before engaging in it. Be subtle about it so that you don't lead them to the answers that you want. If they complement your idea, you probably have asked leading questions, and they are most probably trying to either get rid of you or trying to protect your emotions. Remember that their job is not to tell you what to build, and your job is not to tell them what their problem is. Let them do the talking and evaluate later. Although you are doing qualitative research, you still need to avoid getting your judgment biased by putting too much emphasis on anything that only one person tells you. So don't analyze or overthink each interview. People tend to tell you what they want to be rather than what they are. Ask them about their past experiences to avoid that. Instead of, would you do X? Ask them, when was the last time you did X? Make sure you don't tell them about your idea until the very end of the conversation, and only if appropriate. Dig deeper into their answers. You want to know why, on an emotional level, they do things the way they do. Follow up with questions like, oh, tell me more about that. Or, why did you do it that way? Or, how did that help you? At least go 2 to 3 levels deeper than the first response they give you. Remember, this is equivalent to the so what exercise you did yourself. Your job is not to finish asking questions. Your job is really to learn from their experience. If you're struggling to get information you want from them, you're probably talking to the wrong person. Finding the right customer segment is a big part of this exercise. Do some research beforehand and target a narrow demographic, or you will end up with lots of contradictory information. It is not uncommon to narrow or shift your target after a couple of rounds of conversations. You want to find user groups who have the problem you want to solve. They know it and they're already doing something about it. Even some of them are paying to solve that problem, and that's the best case scenario. If they don't, as much as you might think that they're idiots not to see that problem, you should stay away from them in early stages. Your job is to learn, not to educate. You can always follow up with them later with clarifying questions or surveys, or you can show them mock-ups or prototypes. So don't try to jam too much into the time that you have with them. At least not at the cost of making your conversation with them more superficial. After talking to enough potential users, you can do a larger scale experiment by doing so-called smoke test. Say, set up a web page explaining what you want to do and see if people sign up. Or set up paid ads and see what demographics click on it. Remember that you're validating some assumptions, so make sure you're intentional about what kind of data you're collecting from those experiments. Now, let's go through some examples. Instead of asking, is controlling pests in your crop a big problem? Obviously, they're going to say yes. Instead of that, ask, what are the top 3 sources of inefficiency in your crop? Is dealing with pests annoying? Of course it is. That's not useful. Instead of that, ask, what are the top 3 pest-related issues you have to deal with? Do you like having a better process for finding out where and when to apply pesticides to your crop? Duh. Instead of that, ask them, walk me through the process by which you decide when and where to apply pesticides to your crop. Instead of, would you pay $500 per month to have an automated solution? Ask them, how much does your current current process cost you? Instead of, have you been using automation? Which might sound a bit condescending, and therefore, in order for them to protect themselves, they might just give you a non-answer or might just say, yes, of course. Instead of that, ask, what are some of the ways that you have improved your crop efficiency over the past few years? And that will tell you about their past experience and what they're actually doing right now. A lot of the ideas that I talked about is in this best book that you can read about the topic. It's called Mom Test. It's very short and sweet and teaches you a lot. The gist of it is that if you can manage to get your mom to give you honest answers about your idea, then you're doing it right. The link below is a summary of it if you don't want to bother reading the book.